Lieutenant Marcus Webb sat in the dark control room watching screens full of stars and empty space. The lunar monitoring station had been quiet for weeks, picking up nothing but cosmic radiation and the usual radio chatter from Earth below. Marcus had been on duty for 6 hours, drinking his 4th cup of coffee and fighting to stay awake when the first signal came through. At first it looked like background noise, just another burst of static from deep space. But something was different about this one. The pattern was too regular, too structured to be natural. Marcus leaned forward, his tired eyes focusing on the data streaming across his monitor. The signal was encrypted, layered with mathematical sequences that suggested intelligence behind it. "Control, this is Webb in communications. I'm picking up something strange on the deep space array," Marcus said into his headset. His voice echoed in the empty room, bouncing off walls lined with monitoring equipment and star charts. Captain Elena Rodriguez answered from the command center 3 floors below. "What kind of strange, Webb? Solar flare activity or equipment malfunction?" Marcus ran the signal through the translation matrix, watching as the computer tried to make sense of the alien patterns. "Neither, Captain. This looks like an encoded transmission from outside our solar system. The AI is working on it now, but it's going to take time." Rodriguez was quiet for a moment. Marcus could hear the hum of computers and the distant sound of technicians working in the background. The lunar station never truly slept, always listening to the cosmos for signs of life or threats to Earth. "How far out?" Rodriguez asked. "Based on signal strength and decay, I'd estimate maybe 40 light years." "The transmission is old, though, probably took decades to reach us," Marcus said, adjusting his headset as more data flowed across his screens. The translation matrix chimed softly as it finished its first pass. Marcus felt his heart rate spike as words began to appear on his monitor. Real words in readable English, translated from something that had never originated on Earth. "Captain, you need to see this. The AI has a preliminary translation," Marcus sighed, his voice tight with excitement and fear. "Send it to my terminal," Rodriguez replied. "And Webb, not a word of this to anyone else until we know what we're dealing with." Marcus uploaded the translation and waited. The message was simple but terrifying in its implications. An alien civilization called the Kelani was under attack by something called the Vrex Empire. They were asking for help from anyone who could provide military assistance. The Kelani described their attackers as savage destroyers who showed no mercy to civilian populations. Rodriguez's voice came back over the comm, tense and focused. "Webb, I'm sending this up the chain immediately. Keep monitoring that frequency and record everything. If there are more signals, I want to know about them the second they arrive." Marcus nodded to his empty room and began setting up additional recording equipment. His hands shook slightly as he worked. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now they had their answer, and it came with a desperate plea for help. Over the next hour, more fragments of the distress signal arrived. The translation matrix worked overtime, piecing together a clearer picture of what was happening 40 light years away. The Kelani were a peaceful species that had never developed weapons of war. They had been caught completely unprepared when the Vrex Empire arrived in their system with massive warships and began destroying their cities. The Kelani had managed to send out their distress call before their communication networks were destroyed. They had no idea who might receive their message, only that someone out there might have the military capability to help them. The final fragments of their transmission included coordinates to their home system and a desperate promise to share their scientific knowledge with anyone who came to their aid. Marcus was uploading the latest translations when his console lit up with an urgent message from Earth Command. Admiral James Harrison himself was requesting a direct link to the lunar station. Marcus had never spoken to someone that high in the military hierarchy, and his mouth went dry as he established the connection. "Lieutenant Webb, this is Admiral Harrison. I understand you're the one who intercepted this alien transmission." Harrison's voice was calm and authoritative, the voice of someone used to making decisions that affected millions of lives. "Yes, sir. The signal appears to be genuine." Our xenolinguistics AI is confident in the translation accuracy, Marcus said, trying to keep his voice steady. I've reviewed your preliminary report. This could be the most important discovery in human history, or it could be an elaborate hoax. Either way, we need to respond appropriately, Harrison said. I'm authorizing the deployment of Task Force Nemesis to investigate. Marcus felt his blood turn cold. Task Force Nemesis was humanity's most advanced deep space fleet equipped with weapons that could crack planets and ships that could travel faster than anything else humanity had ever built. They were designed for one purpose: to fight and win wars in the depths of space. Sir, are we really going to intervene in an alien conflict? Marcus asked. Lieutenant, if this signal is real, then we've just learned that the universe is a dangerous place full of species that prey on the weak. The Kelani asked for help from anyone with military capability. They have no idea what they've just awakened, Harrison replied. The Admiral continued, his voice taking on a harder edge. What the Kelani don't know is that their distress signal reached Earth, a world that the rest of the galaxy would classify as one of the most dangerous planets in known space. They asked for warriors, Lieutenant. They're about to get Deathworlders. Marcus had heard the term before in military briefings. Earth was what xenobiologists called a death world, a planet where life evolved under such harsh conditions that its inhabitants became incredibly resilient and adaptable. Most planets that developed intelligent life were far more peaceful than Earth, their species evolving without the constant threat of predators, natural disasters, and resource competition that had shaped humanity. The fleet will launch within 12 hours, Harrison continued. Your job is to keep monitoring that frequency. If we're going to help the Kelani, we need to know everything we can about what we're walking into. Marcus spent the rest of his shift setting up long-range, monitoring equipment and coordinating with the fleet commanders who would soon be jumping to hyperspace. The weight of what was happening pressed down on him like a physical force. Humanity was about to make first contact with alien life, and they were doing it with warships and weapons. As his shift ended, Marcus watched through the station's observation windows as Task Force Nemesis assembled in Earth orbit. The ships were beautiful and terrifying, sleek predators designed for deep space combat. The flagship, Terra's Wrath, was a massive dreadnought bristling with weapons that could turn asteroids to dust. The fleet included 12 destroyers, 6 heavy cruisers, and 30 smaller escort vessels. Each ship was crewed by battle-hardened Space Marines and naval officers who had trained their entire careers for combat in the void between stars. They were the best humanity had to offer, and they were about to discover what role humans would play in a galaxy full of alien civilizations. Marcus downloaded his shift reports and prepared to brief his replacement. As he gathered his equipment, one final transmission came through from the Kelani system. This one was different from the others, weaker and more fragmented. The translation matrix worked for several minutes before producing results that made Marcus's heart sink. The message was simple and final. All major cities destroyed. Population centers burning. This will be our final transmission. Thank you for listening. We hope someone remembers us. The Kelani homeworld had gone silent. Task Force Nemesis was racing toward a system that might already be dead, carrying humanity's first message to the stars written in fire and steel. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kelani system, and Captain Diana Foster felt her stomach tighten as the sensor reports came in. The Kelani homeworld was a burning coal in space, its atmosphere thick with smoke from countless fires. Massive alien warships orbited the planet like vultures, their dark hulls bristling with weapons that had turned a living world into a graveyard. "My God," whispered Lieutenant Tom Bradley from the sensor station aboard the destroyer. "Righteous fury. The entire planet looks like it's dying." Foster stood behind him, watching the tactical display as it updated with new information. The alien ships were huge, easily 3 times the size of the largest human vessels. They moved slowly around the planet, methodically destroying anything that might represent organized resistance. These had to be the Vrex warships the Kelani had described in their distress signal. Captain, I'm picking up a weak transmission from the far side of the planet, reported Communications Officer Amy Chun. It's definitely Kalani origin, but the signal is barely holding together. Foster moved to the communications console and put on a headset. The transmission was full of static and interference, but the translation matrix was able to pull meaning from the alien words. A Kalani refugee ship was trying to escape the system, but its engines were failing and Vrex patrol craft were closing. In helm, plot an intercourse course to those coordinates, Foster ordered. Weapons, I want all systems ready, but hold fire until I give the word. We don't know what we're walking into. The righteous fury accelerated toward the refugee ship, moving through the outer system where debris from destroyed vessels drifted like metallic snow. Foster could see the Kalani ship on the main screen now, a graceful vessel that looked more like a work of art than a spacecraft. It was listing badly, leaving a trail of atmosphere and coolant as it struggled to reach the system's edge. 3. Vrex patrol ships were converging on the refugee vessel, their weapons charging for what looked like a killing blow. Foster made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. All stations, red alert. Target the lead Vrex vessel and prepare to fire, she commanded. The bridge crew moved with practiced efficiency, bringing the destroyer's weapons online and locking onto the alien warship. Foster watched the targeting display as her weapons officer acquired a firing solution on the Vrex ship's engine section. Fire, she said quietly. The righteous fury's main battery spoke with the voice of thunder, sending streams of plasma and kinetic projectiles across the void. The Vrex ship's shields flared and collapsed under the concentrated fire, and secondary explosions began tearing through its hull. Within 30 seconds, the alien warship was breaking apart, its crew either dead or dying in the vacuum of space. The other 2 Vrex ships immediately changed course, turning to face this new threat. Foster could see their weapons turning toward her ship, but human destroyers were built for speed and maneuverability. The righteous fury rolled and dove, avoiding the slow-moving Vrex energy beams while returning fire with devastating accuracy. Vrex. Ships are breaking off, reported the tactical officer. They're retreating toward the planet. Foster nodded and opened a channel to the damaged Kalani vessel. Unknown ship, this is Captain Foster of the human vessel Righteous Fury. We received your distress signal and have come to assist. Please respond. For a moment there was only static. Then a new voice came through the speakers, speaking in harmonics and frequencies that made the bridge crew wince. The translation matrix worked frantically to convert the alien speech into something humans could understand. Human vessel, this is the refugee ship Harmony's Light. We are grateful beyond measure for your intervention. Our engines are failing and we have many wounded aboard, the alien voice said. Foster made another command decision. Harmony's Light, we're going to bring you aboard our ship. Prepare for emergency docking procedures. 20 minutes later, Foster found herself in the main cargo bay watching as the first aliens in human history came aboard a human vessel. The Kalani were unlike anything she had imagined. They stood about 7 feet tall, with crystalline skin that shifted colors as they moved. Their bodies were delicate and graceful, clearly evolved on a world without the harsh conditions that had shaped humanity. The first Kalani to approach her moved with obvious pain, one of its 4 arms hanging uselessly at its side. When it spoke, the sound was like wind chimes mixed with music, beautiful and haunting. I am Ambassador Thel 7, speaker for the survivors of Kalani Prime, the alien said through the translation device clipped to Foster's uniform. You are the humans who answered our call? Foster nodded, still struggling to believe she was having a conversation with an alien being. I'm Captain Foster. We received your distress transmission and came as quickly as we could. I'm sorry, we weren't in time to save your world. Thel 7's crystalline features shifted through what might have been sadness. Our world died 3 days ago when the Vrex bombardment began. What you see now is the final stage of our extinction. We are a peaceful people, Captain Foster. We have never developed weapons of war or military forces. When the Vrex came, we had no way to defend ourselves. Commander Rex Murphy, leader of the Marine Detachment, stepped forward. He was a large man with scars from a dozen battles, and Foster noticed how the colony survivors seemed to shrink back from him. To them, humans probably looked like walking nightmares, all muscle and aggression. "How long have the Vrex been doing this?" Murphy asked. "Are there other species they've attacked?" Thel-7's colors shifted to what the translation matrix identified as deep sorrow. "The Vrex Empire has been conquering and enslaving species for over 1,000 years. They seek out peaceful civilizations and either destroy them completely or force the survivors into slavery. The galactic community operates under the Prime Protection Accord, which requires advanced species to defend primitive ones, but the Vrex ignore these laws." Foster felt anger building in her chest. "And no one stops them?" "Most galactic civilizations are like us, Captain. We evolved on worlds where cooperation and peace were survival strategies. We lack the capacity for the kind of warfare the Vrex practice," Thel-7 replied. Murphy exchanged glances with Foster. Both humans understood what the alien was really saying. The galaxy was full of species that had never learned to fight, never developed. The killer instinct that had kept humanity alive on Earth's dangerous surface. "Thel-7, what can you tell us about Vrex military capabilities?" Foster asked. "We need to know what we're facing if we're going to help other species." The colony ambassador's crystalline form brightened slightly. "You would do this? You would fight to defend species you have never met?" Foster looked around the cargo bay at the colony refugees. They were clearly terrified, probably the last survivors of their entire civilization. The idea of letting the Vrex continue their genocidal campaign across the galaxy made her sick. "That's exactly what we're going to do," she said. THEL-7 began explaining Vrex military doctrine, describing their massive fleet formations and overwhelming firepower tactics. The Vrex had never faced serious resistance from their victims, so their strategies were based on intimidation and brute force rather than tactical flexibility. As the briefing continued, Foster's communication officer interrupted with an urgent message. "Captain, we're receiving a priority transmission from Admiral Harrison aboard Terra's Wrath." Foster activated the ship's main communication system, and the Admiral's voice filled the cargo bay. "All vessels, this is Harrison. Long-range sensors have detected a massive Vrex fleet heading for this system. We're looking at over 200 enemy warships, and they'll arrive within 48 hours. The bridge went silent as the implications sank in. The human fleet had maybe 30 ships total. They were outnumbered 7-1 by an enemy that had been conquering the galaxy for a millennium. THEL-7 single quotes S crystalline form shifted to colors that the translation matrix couldn't identify. When the ambassador spoke, there was something like wonder in the alien's harmonic voice. "Captain Foster, your species came here knowing you might face overwhelming odds. You are willing to fight and possibly die for people you have never met? In all our studies of galactic civilizations, we have never encountered anything like this." Foster looked at Commander Murphy, then at her bridge crew. Every human face showed the same expression, grim determination mixed with anticipation. They all knew what was coming, and none of them looked like they were planning to run. "Thel-7, you're about to learn something about humans," Foster said. "We didn't evolve on a peaceful world like yours. Earth is a planet where everything tries to kill you from the moment you're born. It made us into something the galaxy has never seen before." The alien ambassador's colors shifted again, this time the patterns that seemed almost hypnotic. "What do you call yourselves in your military classifications?" Murphy answered with a cold smile. "We're Deathworlders, Ambassador." And the Vrex are about to find out what that means. Colonel Nathan Pierce watched the tactical display aboard the destroyer Pale Horse as the first Vrex patrol squadron approached their position. The alien ships were massive compared to human vessels, dark and angular like flying fortresses designed to inspire terror in anyone who saw them. Their hulls bristled with heavy weapons that could probably turn a small moon into rubble. "Contact in 3 minutes," reported Lieutenant Sarah Kim from the sensor station. "I count 6 Vrex heavy cruisers moving in standard formation." They're not even trying to be tactical about this. Pierce nodded as he studied the enemy approach. The wreck ships moved in a straight line toward the human fleet, their weapons already charging for long-range bombardment. It was exactly what Fel 7 had described during the briefing. Overwhelming firepower applied without subtlety or tactical thinking. They fight like they've never faced real opposition, Pierce said to his bridge crew. Let's show them what happens when prey fights back. The Pale Horse was one of 12 human destroyers spread across the system in a loose defensive formation. Each ship was a predator built for speed and maneuverability, designed to hunt enemy vessels in the depths of space. Their crews had trained for years in combat scenarios that most galactic species would consider impossible or suicidal. Pierce opened a channel to the other. Destroyer captains, all vessels, this is Pierce. Remember your training and trust your instincts. These aliens have been bullying peaceful species for centuries. Time to show them what real warriors look like. The first Rex energy beams reached out across space, massive streams of plasma that could have vaporized any of the refugee ships they usually targeted. But the human destroyers weren't stationary targets waiting to die. They scattered like a pack of wolves, each ship moving in unpredictable patterns that made targeting almost impossible. Pierce felt the familiar surge of adrenaline as combat began. Helm, attack pattern Delta 7. Weapons, target their lead ship's weapon clusters. The Pale Horse rolled and dove, its engines screaming as it pulled maneuvers that would have crushed the crew of any normal galactic vessel. Humans had evolved on a high-gravity world with unstable weather patterns and constant geological activity. Their bodies could handle accelerations that would turn most aliens into paste. Pierce's weapons officer, Lieutenant Mike Torres, acquired. Target lock on the lead Rex cruiser. Firing solution established. All batteries ready. Fire, Pierce commanded. The destroyer's main guns spoke with deadly precision, sending streams of kinetic projectiles and plasma bolts toward the enemy vessel. The wreck ship's shields flared under the impact, energy barriers that could probably stop anything the Kelani might have thrown at them. But human weapons were designed to punch through the heaviest armor in known space. The Wrex cruiser's shields collapsed after 15 seconds of concentrated fire. Pierce watched with satisfaction as his weapons tore into the alien ship's hull, secondary explosions rippling along its length as critical systems failed. Direct hit on their main reactor, Torres reported. That ship is dead in space. Around the battlefield, the other human destroyers were having similar success. The Wrex formation was breaking apart as their massive ships tried to track targets that moved faster than anything they had ever fought. The aliens' heavy weapons were devastating against stationary targets, but useless against enemies that refused to stay still. Lieutenant Commander Kate Sullivan led a fighter wing from the carrier Defiant, her squadron of 12 attack craft, diving into the heart of the Wrex formation. The fighters were tiny compared to the enemy cruisers, but they moved like angry hornets, striking weak points and disappearing before the Wrex gunners could react. This is Sullivan to all fighters. These ships have weak armor around their engine sections. Hit them there and watch the fireworks. Her voice came through the tactical net. Pierce watched his tactical display as Sullivan's fighters tore through the Wrex formation, leaving disabled ships drifting in their wake. The alien crews had probably never faced an enemy that attacked from multiple directions simultaneously. Using speed and coordination instead of raw firepower within 20 minutes, the entire Wrex patrol squadron was either destroyed or crippled. Not a single human ship had taken serious damage. Pierce opened a channel to Admiral Harrison aboard the flagship Terra's Wrath. Admiral, first contact with Wrex forces complete. Enemy patrol squadron eliminated with minimal damage to our forces. Harrison's voice came back immediately. Outstanding work, Colonel. What's your assessment of their capabilities? Pierce looked at the wreckage scattered across his tactical display. Sir, they fight like they've never faced serious opposition. Big ships, heavy weapons, but no tactical flexibility. They rely on intimidation and overwhelming firepower against defenseless targets. Copy that, Pierce. Continue your patrol pattern and be ready for round 2. Intelligence suggests this was just a scouting force, Harrison replied, as the human fleet regrouped. Pierce's communication officer intercepted Vrex transmissions from the battle area. The translation matrix worked on the alien language, converting their panicked reports into readable English. "Colonel, you need to hear this," communications officer Lisa Park said, routing the translated transmission to the bridge speakers. The voice that came through belonged to General Vorth Prime, commander of the Vrex forces in the Kelani system. He was speaking to someone higher in the Vrex command structure, and his tone was one of confusion and fear. "Supreme Commander, we have encountered an unknown species defending the Kelani system. Our patrol squadron was completely destroyed in less than 30 minutes. These aliens fight with tactics we have never seen before," Vorth Prime reported. The response came from someone with absolute authority in their voice. "General, our databases contain information on every military species in this sector." "What exactly are you facing?" "Ships that move faster than our targeting systems can track. Weapons that penetrate our shields like they were made of paper. Warriors who perform combat maneuvers that should kill them from the acceleration." "Alone," Vorth Prime replied. Pierce felt a cold smile spread across his face as he listened to the alien general's report. The Vrex were beginning to understand that they had awakened something far more dangerous than another peaceful species to bully. "Have you identified their species designation?" the Supreme Commander asked. "Negative, sir. They call themselves humans, but there is no record of this species in our conquest database. No record of their homeworld. It's as if they appeared from nowhere," Vorth Prime said. The Supreme Commander was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice carried an edge of worry. "General, increase your fleet strength and eliminate this threat immediately. We cannot allow word of our defeat to spread to other species." "Sir, I am requesting immediate reinforcement from the core fleets. These humans fight like nothing we have encountered in 1,000 years of conquest," Vorth Prime replied. Pierce felt his blood turn cold as he heard the next part of the transmission. The Supreme Commander was authorizing the deployment of over 200 Vrex warships to the Kelani system. It would be the largest military force the Vrex Empire had assembled. "In decades, General, you will have your reinforcements. The 3rd, 5th, and 7th fleets are being redirected to your position. Crush these humans and make an example of them that will terrify any other species that might consider resistance," the Supreme Commander ordered. The transmission ended, leaving Pierce's bridge in tense silence. His crew looked at him with expressions that mixed excitement with concern. They had just learned that the largest battle in recent galactic history was heading their way. Pierce activated the fleet communication system. "All ships, this is Pierce. We've intercepted Vrex command transmissions. They're sending everything they have to stop us. Over 200 enemy warships are en route." He paused, looking around his bridge at the faces of his crew. These were men and women who had volunteered to serve on the edge of known space, ready to fight battles that most of humanity would never hear about. "People, we came here to answer a distress call from a dying species. Now we have the chance to break the back of an empire that has been terrorizing peaceful civilizations for centuries. The Vrex think they're sending overwhelming force to crush us." Pierce continued. Lieutenant Torres looked up from his weapons console with a predatory grin. "Colonel, what they don't know is that humans don't break easily." Pierce nodded, feeling the familiar calm that came before major combat operations. "That's right, Torres. They're about to learn that there's a difference between conquering defenseless civilians and fighting Deathworlders." The tactical display updated with new sensor data, showing Vrex ships gathering at the edge of the system for what would probably be the final battle. Pierce felt no fear, only anticipation. Humanity was about to announce its presence to the galaxy in the most dramatic way possible. The Vrex had ruled through fear and overwhelming force for 1,000 years. In 48 hours, they were going to meet a species that had learned to fight on the most dangerous world in known space. And nothing would ever be the same again. Major Lisa Thompson led her special operations team through the corridors of the captured Vrex outpost, their boots silent on the alien metal flooring. The facility had been abandoned when human forces overran the colony system's outer defenses, but its computers were still active and full of intelligence data that could change everything. "Sergeant Park, get those translation protocols online," Thompson ordered as her team secured the command center. "I want to know everything these aliens know about galactic military capabilities." Sergeant David Park was the team's linguist and computer specialist, trained to crack alien encryption systems and extract useful intelligence from captured equipment. He worked quickly at the Vrex command console, his fingers dancing over alien controls that had been designed for hands with too many joints. "Major, this is incredible," Park said as data began flowing across his portable display. "The Vrex have detailed files on hundreds of species across this sector of the galaxy. Military assessments, conquest strategies, population counts of enslaved worlds." Thompson moved behind Park to look at his screen. The information scrolling past was horrifying in its scope. The Vrex Empire controlled over 300 star systems, with billions of enslaved beings working in their mines and factories. Dozens of entire species had been wiped out when they proved too difficult to control. "Look at this, Major," said Corporal Jennifer Walsh, the team's technical analyst. "The Vrex classify every species they encounter based on threat level and military potential. Most galactic civilizations are rated as minimal threat." Thompson studied the classification system as Park translated it into readable English. The vast majority of galactic species were rated as Class 1 threats, meaning they posed no military danger to Vrex forces. A few advanced civilizations were rated Class 2, indicating they had defensive capabilities but no offensive military doctrine. "Major, you need to see this," Park said, his voice tight with excitement and fear. "I found references to something called Deathworld species. According to this database, there are only 12 known Deathworlds in the galaxy." Thompson felt her heart rate spike as Park brought up the Deathworld classification system. These were planets where life had evolved under such harsh conditions that the resulting species were considered extremely dangerous by galactic standards. Most Deathworld species were avoided by the galactic community. "What's our classification?" Thompson asked. Park worked for several minutes, cross-referencing Earth's location with the Vrex database. When he found the entry, his face went pale. "Major, Earth isn't just classified as a Deathworld. It's rated as an Omega-class extinction world." The classification sent chills down Thompson's spine. According to the Vrex files, Omega-class worlds were so dangerous that galactic civilization had agreed to completely avoid contact with them. The database listed only 3 such worlds in known space, and Earth was considered the most dangerous of all. "Listen to this description," Park said, reading from the translated files. "Earth, 3rd planet of Sol System. Gravity 1.3 times galactic standard. Unstable climate with extreme weather patterns. Geological activity includes volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, and magnetic field variations. Dominant species has survived. Multiple mass extinction events and developed advanced warfare capabilities." Thompson realized why the Vrex had never heard of humanity before. The galactic community had been deliberately avoiding Earth, treating it like a quarantine zone that was too dangerous to approach. "Major, there's more," Walsh said from another console. "The Vrex database includes tactical assessments of all the Deathworld species they've encountered. Every engagement ended in Vrex defeat, usually with massive casualties on their side." Thompson moved to Walsh's station and read the tactical reports. The few times Vrex forces had encountered Deathworld species, the results had been catastrophic. Deathworlders fought with tactics and intensity that overwhelmed traditional galactic military doctrine. "The Vrex learned to avoid Deathworlds entirely," Walsh continued. "Their standard operating procedure is to retreat immediately if they encounter any species from an Omega-class planet." Park interrupted from his console, his voice filled with amazement. "Major, I'm reading communication intercepts from the current battle. The Vrex High Command is in complete panic. They've never faced organized resistance from a Deathworld species." Before, Thompson activated her communication link to Admiral Harrison aboard the Terra's Wrath. "Admiral, this is Thompson. We've captured extensive intelligence on Vrex military doctrine and galactic threat assessments. Earth is classified as the most dangerous planet in known space. Harrison's voice came back immediately. Major, what's the strategic situation? Are we walking into a trap? Thompson looked around the alien command center, filled with data about hundreds of conquered worlds and enslaved species. Sir, it's the opposite. The Vrex Empire spans hundreds of systems, but they've built their entire military doctrine around conquering defenseless civilizations. They've never faced serious resistance from anyone. She continued reading from the captured files. According to their own assessments, most galactic species evolved on peaceful worlds where cooperation was more important than combat capability. The Vrex have been the apex predators in this region for over 1,000 years. And now they've run into humanity, Harrison said, understanding immediately. That's correct, sir. They're about to face an organized military force from the most dangerous planet in the galaxy. Their tactical doctrine has no answer for Deathworld combat capabilities, Thompson replied, as Thompson's team continued, analyzing the captured data. Dr. Michael Chang's voice came over the communication system from the medical bay of the Terra's Wrath. Chang was the fleet's xenobiologist, and he had been studying captured Vrex soldiers from the earlier battles. Admiral, this is Chang with my biological assessment of Vrex physiology. These aliens are physically fragile compared to humans. Hollow bones, organs that can't handle high-G maneuvers, nervous systems that shut down under extreme stress. Chang's report confirmed what Thompson was seeing in the tactical files. The Vrex had evolved on a low-gravity world with stable conditions. Their entire species was built for intimidation rather than actual combat against determined opponents. Their military doctrine makes sense now, Chang continued. They use massive ships and overwhelming firepower because they can't handle the physical demands of high-speed combat. When we perform evasive maneuvers that pull 4 or 5 Gs, their crews are probably losing consciousness. Thompson felt a cold smile spread across her face as the implications became clear. Humanity hadn't just stumbled into a galactic conflict. They had arrived at the perfect moment to shatter an empire that had terrorized peaceful species for centuries. Major Thompson, what's your assessment of the incoming Vrex fleet? Harrison asked. Thompson consulted the tactical databases, cross-referencing ship classifications and crew complements. Sir, they're sending over 200 ships, but it represents a significant portion of their total military strength. If we can defeat this fleet, it might cripple their ability to maintain control over their empire. Park looked up from his console with new information. Major, I'm reading reports from across Vrex space. Word of our victories is already spreading through their communication networks. Several enslaved species have begun rebelling, thinking that effective resistance is possible. Thompson realized that the battle for the Kelani system was about more than saving one species. Humanity's intervention was inspiring oppressed civilizations across the galaxy to fight back against their Vrex oppressors. Admiral, we're not just fighting to save the Kelani, Thompson reported. We're fighting to liberate dozens of species that have been enslaved for centuries. This could be the beginning of the end for the Vrex Empire. Harrison was quiet for a moment, probably considering the enormous responsibility that had just fallen on humanity's shoulders. When he spoke again, his voice carried the weight of command decisions that would affect billions of lives. Major, continue your intelligence gathering. I want to know everything about Vrex fleet compositions, weapon capabilities, and command structures. If we're going to break their empire, we need to do it completely, Harrison ordered. Thompson nodded to her empty room and turned back to the captured alien computers. Her team worked through the night, extracting every piece of useful intelligence from the Vrex databases. By dawn, they had a complete picture of the enemy they were facing. The Vrex Empire was vast but vulnerable, held together by fear rather than loyalty. Their military was powerful against defenseless opponents, but had never been tested against a species that fought back with equal determination and superior tactics. Major, I've found something else, Park said, his voice filled with excitement. The Vreks have a central command node that coordinates their entire empire. It's located in their home system, about 200 light-years from here. Thompson moved to Park's console and studied the tactical display. The Vreks command structure was highly centralized, with all major decisions flowing through their home system. If that central node could be eliminated, the entire empire might collapse into chaos. "Admiral, this is Thompson with critical intelligence," she said into her communicator. "We've identified the Vreks command structure. Their entire empire is controlled from a single location." Harrison's response was immediate. "Major, are you suggesting what I think you're suggesting?" Thompson looked around the alien command center, filled with evidence of 1,000 years of conquest and genocide. The Vreks had terrorized peaceful species across the galaxy, enslaving billions and destroying entire civilizations. Now humanity had the opportunity to end their reign of terror permanently. "Sir, if we can survive the incoming battle and capture their fleet intact, we'll have the ships we need to strike at their homeworld. One decisive blow could free every enslaved species in Vreks space," Thompson replied. The communication channel was quiet for a long moment as Harrison considered the implications. Humanity had come to the Kelani system to answer a distress call. Now they were planning to topple a galactic empire. "Major, finish your intelligence gathering and return to the fleet. We have 36 hours before the Vreks Armada arrives. And I want every advantage we can get," Harrison ordered. As Thompson's team prepared to leave the captured outpost, Park made one final discovery that changed everything. Deep in the Vreks databases, he found references to other species that had sent distress signals across the galaxy. Dozens of civilizations were under attack by various aggressive empires, all calling for help that would never come. "Major, look at this," Park said, showing her the translated messages. "The galaxy is full of species crying out for protection. The Kelani weren't the only ones." Thompson realized that humanity's intervention in the Kelani system was just the beginning. If they could defeat the Vreks Empire, they would inherit the responsibility of protecting every peaceful species in the galaxy. Earth was about to become the guardian of civilizations they had never heard of. "Pack everything up, people," Thompson ordered. "We're going back to the fleet with intelligence that will win this war." As her team gathered their equipment and prepared to leave the alien outpost, Thompson took one last look at the tactical displays showing the scope of Vreks conquests. Hundreds of star systems, billions of enslaved beings, entire species ground under the boot of an empire that had never faced serious opposition. In 36 hours, that was going to change forever. The Vreks Armada was approaching with overwhelming force, confident that they could crush any resistance. What they didn't know was that they were about to face Deathworlders who had been preparing for this kind of fight. Their entire evolutionary history. Thompson activated her communicator one final time. "Admiral, this is Thompson returning to base. Intelligence mission complete. Sir, we're not just fighting for the Kelani anymore. We're fighting for the future of galactic civilization." Harrison's voice came back strong and determined. "Copy that, Major. Come home. We have an empire to break." Admiral James Harrison stood on the bridge of the Terras, wroth, watching as the largest fleet in Vreks history dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kelani system. The tactical display showed over 200 enemy warships arranged in perfect formation, their massive hulls bristling with weapons designed to terrorize entire planets into submission. "Sir, enemy fleet strength confirmed at 237 vessels," reported Commander Sarah Blake from the tactical station. "That's roughly 8 times our number." Harrison nodded calmly as he studied the enemy formation. The Vreks ships moved with the confidence of predators who had never faced serious resistance. Their formation was designed for intimidation rather than tactical advantage, spreading across space like a wall of dark metal and death. "Fleet Admiral Korvac Supreme is transmitting on all frequencies," Communications Officer Robert Hayes announced. "He's demanding our immediate surrender." Harrison activated the communication system, his voice carrying across space to reach every ship in both fleets. "Fleet Admiral Korvac Supreme, This is Admiral Harrison of the Human Fleet. You are in violation of the Prime Protection Accord and guilty of genocide against the Kelani people. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. The Vrex response came back filled with arrogance and contempt. Human Admiral, you command 30 ships against our armada of over 200. Your species will be extinct within the hour, and your worlds will burn as examples to any who would oppose the Vrex Empire. Harrison smiled coldly as he cut the communication channel. The Vrex fleet was beginning its approach, confident that overwhelming numbers would guarantee victory. What they didn't understand was that humans had spent their entire evolutionary history as persistence hunters, capable of taking down prey many times their size through superior tactics and relentless determination. All ships, this is Harrison. Execute Deathworld Protocol 7, the Admiral commanded, across the human fleet. Captains and crew members felt their blood surge with anticipation. Deathworld Protocol 7 was the most aggressive combat doctrine in human military history, designed specifically for situations where peaceful negotiation was impossible and total victory was the only acceptable outcome. The human ships scattered. Like a pack of wolves, abandoning traditional formation, flying in favor of individual hunting patterns, each vessel became an independent predator, free to exploit any weakness in the enemy formation without waiting for centralized commands. Captain Robert Hayes commanded the heavy cruiser Unconquered as it dove directly into the heart of the Vrex formation. His crew performed miracles of damage control and tactical maneuvering as enemy fire concentrated on their ship from dozens of directions. "Sir, we're taking heavy fire from multiple vectors," reported Lieutenant Kelly Morrison from the damage control station. "Hull breaches on decks 7 through 12, but all critical systems are still online." Hayes watched his tactical display as the Unconquered's weapons found target after target among the massive Vrex vessels. Human ships were smaller and faster than their enemies, but they packed weapons designed to punch through the heaviest armor. "In known space, target their command ship," Hayes ordered. "If we can take out their fleet coordination, the rest will fall apart." The Unconquered rolled and accelerated toward the Vrex flagship, a massive dreadnought that dwarfed any human vessel. Enemy fire concentrated on the human cruiser as it closed the distance, but Hayes' crew kept their ship fighting even as sections of hull plating were torn away by plasma beams. Across the battlefield, Commander Ashley Kumar led a boarding operation. Against a crippled Vrex battleship, her Marines moved through the alien vessel's corridors with brutal efficiency, fighting hand-to-hand combat against enemies who had never faced opponents trained on a Deathworld. "These aliens are physically weak," Kumar reported over the tactical net. "Their bones break easily and they can't handle close combat. Push forward and take no prisoners." The Marines advanced through the Vrex ship like a biological weapon, their training and physical capabilities overwhelming alien crews who had never faced boarding actions. Within 30 minutes, Kumar's forces had captured the enemy vessel and turned its weapons against the Vrex fleet. Admiral Harrison watched the battle unfold from his command center, coordinating the chaos of individual ship actions into a coherent strategy. The Vrex fleet was beginning to break apart as their captains realized that their traditional tactics were ineffective against enemies who refused to fight fair. "Sir, Vrex fleet coordination is collapsing," reported Commander Blake. "Individual ships are breaking formation and trying to retreat." Harrison opened a channel to all human vessels. "All ships pursue and destroy. Show them what happens when Deathworlders go to war." The human fleet transformed into a hunting pack, chasing down fleeing Vrex vessels and destroying them before they could escape to spread word of their defeat. Ships that had terrorized peaceful civilizations for centuries were reduced to burning wreckage by weapons and tactics they had never imagined possible. Captain Diana Foster, now commanding a squadron of destroyers, cornered a group of Vrex cruisers, trying to escape toward the system's edge. Her ships moved in perfect coordination, cutting off escape routes and forcing the enemy vessels into a killing zone. "This is Foster to all Vrex vessels in Grid 7-7. You are surrounded and outgunned. Surrender now or be destroyed." She transmitted on standard galactic frequencies. The response came from the lead Vrex captain, his voice filled with disbelief and terror. "What are you? What species fights like this?" Foster felt a cold satisfaction as she replied, "We're humans, Captain. We're from Earth, and we're here to end your Empire's reign of terror." The wreck ships continued trying to fight, but their efforts were futile against enemies who had been bred for warfare on the most dangerous planet in the galaxy. One by one, the alien vessels fell silent, their crews either dead or unconscious. From the extreme maneuvers, human ships performed as naturally as breathing as the battle reached its climax. Admiral Harrison received a transmission from Ambassador Thel-7 aboard the refugee ship Harmony's Light, the Kalani. Diplomat's crystalline form was shifting through colors that the translation matrix identified as awe and gratitude. "Admiral Harrison, we are witnessing something unprecedented in galactic history. No species has ever defeated a Vrex armada of this magnitude," Thel-7 said. Harrison watched his tactical display as the last Vrex resistance collapsed. Over 200 enemy warships had been destroyed or captured, while human losses were minimal. The largest military force the Vrex Empire had assembled in decades was nothing but debris and surrendering survivors. "Thel-7, this is just the beginning," Harrison replied. "Major Thompson's intelligence indicates that the Vrex Empire is held together by fear rather than loyalty. With their main fleet destroyed, enslaved species across the galaxy will begin rebelling." As if to confirm his words, Harrison's communication officer began receiving transmissions from across Vrex space. Species that had been enslaved for centuries were rising up against their oppressors, inspired by news of humanity's impossible victory. "Admiral, I'm getting reports from dozens of star systems," Hayes announced. "Vrex garrison forces are being overwhelmed by slave rebellions, their empires collapsing." Harrison felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. Humanity had come to answer one species' distress call and ended up inheriting the protection of an entire galaxy. "All ships, this is Harrison. Begin search and rescue operations for survivors, both human and Vrex. We're going to need every ship we can get for what comes next," he ordered as the human fleet began salvage. "Operations," Harrison opened a channel to Earth Command. "Control, this is Admiral Harrison reporting from the Kalani system. Mission accomplished. The Vrex Empire is finished." The response from Earth came back filled with amazement and pride. "Admiral, this is General Patricia Wells. The entire planet is watching the news feeds. You've just announced humanity's presence to the galaxy in the most dramatic way possible." Harrison looked out at the debris field that had once been the Vrex Empire's most powerful fleet. In a few hours, human ships had accomplished what peaceful galactic civilizations had thought impossible for over 1,000 years. "General, prepare for a large-scale fleet construction. We're going to need a lot more ships," Harrison said. "Every enslaved species in the galaxy is calling for help, and we're the only ones capable of answering." Ambassador Thel-7's voice came over the communication system one final time. "Admiral Harrison, the Galactic Council is requesting immediate contact with your species. They wish to formally recognize humanity as a guardian species, tasked with protecting peaceful civilizations." Harrison smiled as he watched human ships moving through the battlefield, rescuing survivors and salvaging technology that would help them protect other species. The Kalani distress signal had reached Earth by accident, but the results would reshape galactic civilization forever. "Thel-7, tell the Galactic Council that humanity accepts the responsibility." "But we do things our way," Harrison replied. Deep in space, monitoring stations across the galaxy were detecting new signals. Hundreds of distress calls from species that had heard about humanity's victory. The Deathworlders had announced their presence, and the galaxy would never be the same.